Welcome, ladies and gents. Happy Wednesday. Do you have your cup of tea, cup of coffee next to you? Because let me tell you, today's topic is a touchy one. Now, you guys know on Wednesdays we talk about relationships, right? And I can bet you this is a topic, what we're touching on today, is a topic that you have thought about, tried to have conversations about, maybe even tried avoiding having conversations about with your friends, your family, your loved one, your children. What are we talking about? Money, the M word, the one thing that can easily make or break a relationship. And in fact, here are a couple of quick facts that might just shock you. The first one is a British study suggests that the higher your income, the more likely you are to have found love, often more than once. And the second fact is arguments about money is by far the top predictor of divorce, particularly early in the relationship. So ladies and gents, we want to talk about this, okay? And we're going to be very open. In studio, we have an expert with us. I'll introduce him in a second. But before we get into that and we dive into the show, you know I'm going to ask you to follow us on social media, right? We'd love to hear from you. If you have any questions, let us know. We're on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. That's Living With Us. And in studio, we have Waithaka, who is the GM at Centonomy. You are in charge of programs and communication, isn't that right? Yeah. Right. And you delve mostly in, well, not mostly, but you have touched on money and relationships. Yeah. So, Waithaka Gatumia, when two people meet and it's all love and butterflies, but sometimes the topic of money comes up, right?
Yep.
How early would you advise people to start sharing or having open conversations about money?
Yeah, well, this is you've touched on something that's uncomfortable, as you can tell.
Yeah.
I think wisdom is a good idea.
Yeah.
If it's your first date, I'm not sure, but maybe that's not the best time to start asking how much do you earn, what are these different things.
Yeah.
Find out whether you're compatible, maybe personality-wise. But you will notice how people use money, how they spend money, how their views are about, and just pick up on those things. Where did the guy take you? And I don't know if it's politically correct to say that anymore, that the guy is the one taking out the girl, but it still happens more. The more traditional relationships still happen that way.
Yeah.
And so, if it's the guy taking you out, go on. I mean, just watch. Where did you go the first time round?
Right.
If it was like to a really expensive place, okay, this is the first date. Is this the level where are you going to go next?
Yeah.
So you have to really watch out for some of those pointers. But I think as soon as now you begin to think this is possibly somebody I would like to be in a relationship with, then that's a good time to start asking those questions and ask them in a wise way. It's not so, what are your plans for the next 5 years? You know, I mean, don't let it be like an interview, but just ask what matters to you. What are the things you hope to do? Those kind of questions will reveal somebody's thinking around money.
Okay, and what exactly are you supposed to be looking out for when you're asking these questions?
Well, here's the thing. At Centonomy, we talk about money on all different aspects, whether it's yourself, your business, your career, all these different areas. And we found that every time you're thinking about an investment, and I think a relationship is a huge investment in your life, it's all about your goals. What do you want to achieve? And so you're asking questions in line with what you want. If it's something that you're thinking about, that you'd like to have a family at some point, that's a big goal.
Right.
So when you have a family, you're talking about education, you're talking about housing, when you say family, it comes with all these other things, including your relatives.
Oh, yes.
And when you're in a relationship, those relatives will be asking for money as well.
Yeah, oh gosh.
And so when you say family, it comes with so many other things on top. So if family is a goal, then bring that up and just say, this is what I'm thinking about. I'd like to have a family. When you hear family, please hear house, education,
rent,
and
a lot,
and relatives
that
who are
come
going to join your life.
Okay.
And that now can begin to open up your mind to what is somebody else thinking, the other person thinking about the relationship.
Yeah, and I like that you touch on goals, and that's what you really should be seeing. Are they aligned?
Correct.
Now, are there things or topics you should not bring up? Say, for instance, maybe you took out life insurance, which is sometimes a touchy subject because you're like, how much is that you've taken out for? Or I don't know, maybe it's your salary. Are there things that you should keep to yourself until you know for a fact that this is serious?
Yeah, I think you want to reveal as much as possible to remain attractive, because I guess that's what you're talking about. You don't just to chase someone away.
Yeah.
But I think when you're getting into real discussions about money, I think one of the biggest problems we have is that we as a culture are uncomfortable talking about money. We don't generally open up. Parents talking to their children. In churches, we don't talk about money. At work, we kind of infer and try and read into different situations.
Right.
And when it comes to relationships, one of the things the lines that we always repeat when we talk about relationships is that where there is no clarity, there will be conflict. If you're not clear, you will always fight, because it's that I don't know where you're going, you don't know where I'm going, and because of that, we're moving in different directions, or we might even be moving in the same direction, but not at the same speed, and so there's frustration.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. If you're going to start the relationship, and now you're serious about it, that's the point at which now to start having these discussions. It's not going to be like an interview where you sit down across from someone and say, now, okay, so what are your plans for? Because many people don't know. What you're trying to do is get someone's attitudes. You're trying to understand their perspectives. You're trying to understand where they have come from, so that you can now begin to work together to understand where we are going together.
Right.
If you don't have that discussion, and an honest discussion, over and over again, because it's not one time.
Yeah.
That's another thing that we talk about in relationships. We think that, okay, we're going to sit down and everybody agrees.
Sorted. Yeah.
But you know that people don't work like that.
True.
Think about it. In the office, you have meeting after meeting after meeting to try and get some kind of agreement, to try and get some understanding. Do the same with your family. Do the same with your relationship.
And I can imagine even when something different takes place, maybe you have a child. Now you sit down and you have to realign and reevaluate these things.
That's right.
Okay, so now it's time. Maybe, it's gone from, we're just casually dating to, ooh, he's gone, talked to my father. I've met the family. Looks like we're about to tie the knot.
Yeah.
What are the things that you have to know or ask about? Is it investments? Is it debt? Like what should you know about your partner?
Ask every single question, and do so in a very comfortable place, because you're going to be uncomfortable. Please just prepare yourself.
Okay.
When now you're serious and you're saying, for instance, I'm assuming you're discussing a marriage relationship now that you're getting into, because essentially this is a contract that you're going to go into for a long period of time, and it has an effect on the rest of your life, because no matter where that relationship goes, you have brought two families together. There'll have been lots of investment that has gone into that, possibly children, and so you have to think the long term. So sit down and ask every single question you have. I always laugh, and my wife and I, before we got married, it was a very interesting first date where we brought up some, because we knew each other for years.
Okay.
So we knew each other for years, and so the first date it's not like a normal first date.
Yeah.
It was, okay, now we're getting serious.
Yeah.
So on that first date, really, we brought up stuff that we had never thought about, past relationships, other different things like that. And it opened up the discussion that allowed us to have a good understanding of where our relationship is going, so that we get to the point that we are comfortable to ask even the more uncomfortable questions. But sometimes you have to be forced into it. So that was the first time that we had it. But when we went in, like for instance, for marriage counseling, that was the best, because now you're sitting with a couple who've done like 10 years, and they give you their experiences, and then you're just like, what?
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Now let's ask that question. Like, do you have any savings?
Yeah. Now the serious questions come out. What are your investments? Do you have any debt? Yeah.
Your job? How's your job going?
Is it secure?
I hear you. Is it looking like it's moving forward? I mean, ask those questions. How are your parents doing?
Right.
You know what I mean?
I actually want to now paint some scenarios to you, and I want to hear what you have to say about this.
Sure.
Okay? Scenario number one. Okay, it's 2 months into the dating relationship, and the guy is seriously considering joint financial plans with the lady. So first on the list is to bring in money from both sides to invest in farming business, followed by jointly investing in the stock market. 2 months in. Your thoughts?
Human relationships are difficult. We are all different.
Okay.
When you say 2 months, what is 2 months? You see, like when you speak about my example.
No,
like
I mean yours was like 10, years with 2 months
knowing each other and then 2 months of dating. That's the right time to do it.
Yeah.
But if it's 2 months of knowing this person, maybe
No.
not.
Take your time.
Because when you start making those joint investments, putting yourself together, it's going to be difficult to now separate. Because you want to clarify how is this relationship going to work? Where are we going? By 2 months in, do you even know what
you
the
barely can
2-year
remember
goal
his
is?
last name,
Yes.
let alone want to now get into business.
So 2 months in, that's, as I said, it depends on the relationship, but if it's 2 months in of knowing each other, maybe not.
Maybe not.
Ask the question, but maybe not the time to
Pause.
actually start putting the money in.
Okay. Scenario.
However,
Okay.
because I always have to make sure, you never know what this relationship looks like. It may work. I mean, we've heard of arranged marriages that have worked and things
True.
like that. And so it depends on each relationship, but the general feeling around that from what we're talking about is
Pause.
Just
Pause.
wait.
Don't do it, but
Yes.
just not yet.
think deeply
Yeah.
about it.
Okay,
Yes.
scenario number 2. A lady and a guy are dating.
Yes.
The guy brings up a conversation on finances, inquiring whether the lady is in any kind of financial debt.
Okay.
She says no, fearing it'll put him off, and yet it's a lie. What's your take on this?
Any relationship that has worked based on lies,
Good point.
not in my
Good
experience.
point. Yeah.
I think just be as honest as you can be. I think, you see, our culture doesn't allow for this kind of thing to happen. We have a very secretive culture, especially around money, and I don't know why, but we do.
Yeah.
There are other places around this world, some places in Europe, where people will come and say, "Hey, how you doing, Sharon? What do you do for a living? Oh, you're in media. Great. How much do you earn?"
And they'll just say
And
it,
they'll
and
answer
that's
because
true.
it's not a measure of who you are. What you
Right.
earn is not a measure of who you are. But in our society, which is
Wait,
so...
I just think we need a moment. What you earn is not a measure of who you are.
Yeah. So if you in our society, because we're quite, I mean, there's a huge gap between the rich and the poor, and even within the middle class and upper class, there's a huge push for I'm doing better than you, and I can show that by what I drive, where I live, all those different things. Because we have such a hidden culture, that's where all those things come from.
Yeah.
I think then that can be an issue along the way.
Yeah.
But just be honest.
Okay.
Say this is where you are, because you see, the thing is, the fact that you're in debt right now does not mean that you'll be in debt in the future.
Yeah, it doesn't define you.
A big part of what we train about is that you can actually get out of bad debt, and that you can use debt to grow as well. In fact, that's what the wealthy do. They barely use their own money for growth. They borrow in order to build.
Wow.
And so
Okay.
when you start thinking about debt, we have also a very negative thought about debt.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's a good thing, especially when it's debt for consumption.
Yeah.
But if you're trying to grow a business, if you're trying to build what you're going to do, then let the person know and be honest
Yeah.
about it. Debt is not the end of the world. You can get over it.
True,
as well.
especially if it's serious. Like you said, you don't want to start the foundation of this to
That's
be
right.
based on lies.
That's right.
Now, what is your take on prenuptial agreements?
Okay. Why are you asking hard
Deep breath,
questions?
yeah.
Why are you asking hard
Because
questions?
we want to know. We want to know. Should we be signing them? Is it only for the rich and the not so rich? Should the people who, aren't even maybe that, established be having and signing prenuptial agreements?
To understand that each one of these issues, when you talk about relationships, come with such nuance that you have to be careful.
Okay.
So and especially because I am a Christian, I'm a believer, I go to church,
Yeah.
my church members are listening to what I do, and so I have to be careful here.
Okay.
So here's the thing.
Yeah.
From a faith perspective, my belief is that, my personal belief is that when you get into a relationship, it's a relationship for life, and so you should not have an exit strategy. However, I realize that there are many people who don't share my belief, and probably they don't even share that belief with the person they're getting into a relationship with. And so, as I said earlier, our principle that we continue to speak about is where there is no clarity, there will be conflict. Why not clarify by using a prenuptial? If you understand, and here we have this discussion all the time in our classes. You see, you're essentially, you know, before you get married, this character, this guy, I don't trust him.
Okay.
Guys are also saying, this lady, I've been watching her, I don't trust. So why don't you be open about it and say, let's write this down because we're not sure yet. Maybe in a few years we can revise it. What it is, it's an honest discussion about. And I've actually been, I've been in wedding committees where it has been discussed openly, and now it's happening in Kenya as well, yes. So that people are doing it and they're being honest about it and saying, look, this is where we're at. We want to make sure we're getting to this relationship, understanding one another. We love each other, but we need to get this side of our lives right. And then maybe we can discuss this later on. So it's possible. What it does, it brings clarity into a space where there's a bit of uncertainty.
Yeah.
And if you're feeling like that, and you're feeling like, oh, this guy might, this lady might take off with all my wealth at some point, and I want to protect, or vice versa.
Yeah.
I mean, why not? Then say so. And that's an honest thing.
Yeah, an honest conversation. I remember I took a business law elective, and if I remember correctly, I remember the lecturer saying that prenups, it's not just necessarily for, you know, the super wealthy coming in with those who maybe aren't in the same financial space, but that it can be a way to protect yourselves if something comes up in the marriage and someone is coming after maybe you weren't able to pay off your loans, that you're able then to separate the two of you. And so your entire family doesn't go down, but they just come after the one person. And if you don't know, prenuptial agreements is what you sign before marriage that then allows, that separates your wealth. And whatever you come into the marriage with is whatever, if the marriage does dissolve, what you'll then leave with, right? So it makes it very clear, that's yours, that's hers. Okay, now, thank you so much for that, God. This is so exciting. We have to go on a quick break, but when we come back, we're getting into now marriage and money. We were talking about dating, the early stages, right? Before you tie the knot. Now you've tied the knot. There are the relatives, there are the children. How do we handle this? We have to take a break, but we'll be back in a moment. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, we've been talking about money. And in studio, we have Waithaka Gatumia of Syntonomy. He educates people on how to manage their money so that it really expands and is able to move them closer to their dreams. But now we want to understand, how does marriage and money mix or not mix? And like you remember the quick fact I shared at the beginning, a lot of arguments that take place in marriages are around finances and money, and that quite early on it could lead to divorce. So we want to understand this topic, ladies and gents. Now, question number one, what are some of the things that drive couples apart when it comes to the money topic?
It's like the old example that people keep using about like toothpaste, right? Where you squeeze the toothpaste from. Small things matter. Small things matter.
Okay.
And you see, why they matter is because they are magnified in marriage. You see, because when you're dating, there's a level of separation. You go home to your own home.
To my own
and
place,
I
you
go
go
to
to
my
your
place, and
place.
everything is fine.
Yeah.
But you see, if you go out and you spend a little bit more than I was comfortable with, or I can sense there's something you're doing, but I'm not sure what it is.
Right.
I think that's where the biggest issue comes, because it's an issue of trust. If you do not trust someone, then it's going to bring conflict again.
Okay.
We as human beings have this sixth sense, and especially ladies have it better than most of us, yeah? You can tell when something is going on.
Okay.
And if you have an uncomfortable feeling, where is the money going? Are we really safe? Are we really comfortable? Are we okay? Because we have a lot of ladies who come for the class, and their concern is, are we okay? Are we okay? Are we invested enough? Will there be enough money for the kids?
Wow, wait, for a second.
Yeah.
I know you touch on money,
Yes,
and that's
yes.
what you teach at Centonomy, but it feels like almost what you are doing also is some kind of therapeutic classes. If you're talking about ladies coming in and asking, like, is everything okay?
No, usually it happens after the class. So we've discussed, and then someone will come, but how do I know if we're okay? Can I
Yeah.
find out stuff about that?
Interesting,
And
but go on,
Yeah, no, seriously. Because we've understood money is rarely the problem in the relationship. It's a communication issue. I don't know where we're at, and so I'm uncomfortable. And then I ask you, and because, for instance, if your job is going the wrong way, or things are tough and you don't want to say, that just adds to my discomfort. And then you'll hear a story from somebody else, and because you don't have clarity about it, it adds to all the things that you're discussing. So we have found that whatever relationship you're in, business, family, work, is when you talk about in the office, put all the cards on the table.
Right.
When somebody is having that sense of, are we okay? I don't know where we are. I don't know where we are. It'll just add and add and add up. And that's where the most of the conflicts that we've seen come up, because you're pulling in different directions. So say things are thick, things are a bit tough at the moment. Can you help out?
Yeah.
But you see, yes, wanaume.
You don't want to share.
I don't know what people say. Fill in the gap, wanaume ni, and everyone says all that.
Yeah.
And so you find that in relationships, somebody is thinking we're okay,
But
but there's that sense that there's nothing going on there. The second thing is, we don't leverage on what the strength of relationships are. When you have two people, in essence, there's two incomes, two minds, two ways of thinking, which is always better than one.
Yeah.
And so leverage on it. Sometimes ask your husband, what do you think about this business that I want to start? Ask your wife, what do you think about this decision? And when you have an outside perspective, it'll help you along the way. And we often don't leverage on it, because apparently as men we should be strong, and women the same thing now.
Yeah.
Oh, we have to be independent. Yes, I don't need your help to be able to get to where we're going.
But if you're in a marriage, then it's the two of you. And
Work
you should
together,
be working
work together, yes.
I love that. And I think the key thing in both examples that you just shared is that communication. You just have to be open and honest.
Money is never the problem.
It's
It
the
really isn't.
communication.
Yes,
Yeah. Okay, so now I want to jump straight into a scenario before we move into the other questions.
Sure.
Here you go. The lady in the relationship is such a spender and can never control herself. You know what? I'm going to change this around.
Change it, yes,
I'm going to
yes,
change
yes.
this around,
We've
okay?
seen guys
So
too.
the man in the relationship is such a spender, and he can never control himself from the constant purchase of all the latest trendy tech stuff in the market. And on the other hand, the wife is always angered by this habit, but doesn't know how to approach the situation. Should she hide some money? You've heard of those ones, you know?
We have heard,
like
and
secret bank accounts.
we deal with those things. But again, we're failing to leverage on the strength of relationship.
Although here, what's clear is that there's a clear weakness. There's a fault line.
And nobody's perfect. And
True.
you're not going to find a relationship where you're the same.
Yeah.
There'll be some differences along the way. So what you want to do is say this. If you're looking for security, then work at it together. This account that you're doing and you're saying is for savings, then do so. But do so with a reason. Because many times when somebody is spending, it's because their goals are not aligned. So you're saying, why are we saving? We want to buy a house. We want to send our kids to school. We want to go on a great holiday this December. We want to buy that new tech that will be good for everybody. Why not? And if you've understood that, then you're actually working towards the same goal. Because sometimes address it not from the point of, why are you spending this and this is too much and it's not in line with our goal, and say, what is it that you want? So if you're like me, thank you for bringing that up, that I like new tech. So I'd like a new phone. You know, I just like them. I like the new technologies that comes out. So can we sit now with my wife, and rather than her coming and saying, you're overspending on this, and then come and say, how can we do this so that next year you can get the latest phone that comes out? if you do it from that perspective, then you're aligning your views.
Right.
If you come at it from a conflict point of view and just say, no, this is wrong, who said it's wrong? Have we agreed that it's wrong? If you agree and then say, look, I want a new phone, good. I want to go on holiday, good. How can we do this together? Put it into the same pot, the same investment, and then work together from there.
Yeah.
I think that might be probably a better way to do it.
The approach matters. I like that.
Because it's obviously something that matters to the person. You see, you don't want to take away from their character and take away from what matters. If that technology matters to them, good. If it's fashion, good.
Right.
It means something to them. How do you validate it and then build from that?
Yeah, and I like that also if it's important and matters to them. It doesn't mean that you're spending tens of thousands at the club.
Yeah.
Throwing it on other people and just, but if there's something that's meaningful to you, approach it from not the perspective of you're doing something wrong, but how do we do this so that it doesn't affect other areas?
That's right.
Now, leading from that, should couples have joint bank accounts or separate bank accounts?
Long and short of it, we should have joint goals, not necessarily joint bank accounts.
Okay. Why is that?
Because don't put all your eggs in one basket. That's my perspective.
Okay.
You can, but the idea is this: probably have two or more bank accounts. Mm-hmm. They can be joint, but the idea is that you don't want all your money in one bank, or because we've seen the changes that have happened in the banking industry recently, and that can be a danger. But have joint goals. And so in doing so, you have access. You can be able to see the records. You can see what's coming in, what's going out. That's something that you can be able to share. So,
okay, so say, for instance, you had separate accounts.
Yes.
Should you still have access to your partner's account?
Why not?
Wow. I don't know why I didn't think
why not?
That
you see, this is the thing. It's a cultural thing that we have where each person has their own space. But my perspective is you got married so that you can do things together. Mm-hmm. Why not do them together? Yeah. I think that's where the strength is. If you don't and you've made a decision, then make that clear so the other person understands.
Okay.
If there's clarity about it, we found many relationships where the traditional African man, hey, I am the breadwinner, I will organize and everything will be fine. And your job is to, wait, or it can be the other way around. If you have agreed that that's the nature of your relationship, then go ahead. The problem is we have never agreed on these things. We just kind of move together. Yes. We think it's okay that the other person understands where you're coming from. No. Have the discussion and say, and especially what we said before getting into marriage, say, how are we going to be managing our money?
Yeah.
So that if it's disagreeable to you, have the prenuptial or don't get married.
Yeah.
But if it is something that matters to you, then why not? Bring the statements. You can even do the SMS alerts now, and both of you get the alerts of what's going on.
That feels heavy. Okay, so here's my next question.
Yes.
So yes, there are two people coming together,
yes,
but there's still a sense of individuality, and I want to do things without having to check in, ask for permission, be like, hey, I want to buy this. Can I? Should then couples have maybe like a spend limit or something, So, and I've seen this, anything under 5,000 to 10,000 shillings, sure, you can spend. Mm-hmm. Anything above this amount, we have to have a discussion. Should that be a strategy?
That's a big mistake, in my opinion.
Really?
Because our biggest issues around money are not 50,000 shilling purchases. It's 500 bob, 200 shillings. We don't see the effect of that 200 bob, 500 bob every day, 20 shillings. One of the exercises that we do in the class is that we ask people, just go and write down all you spend. And a friend of mine came back after the class and said he didn't know, but he was spending over 500 shillings on sweets in a month.
Okay.
But it's because it's 20 bob as you're in traffic. It's another 20 bob. Then you go to the supermarket and it's 100 bob on a bar of chocolate. And when you add that up over years, that's massive investments that you could have been making. You will not go suddenly and just buy a washing machine. You get, that's highly unlikely.
Highly unlikely, true.
But you will go and spend like 3,000 on a dinner that you didn't plan. And if you do that 3,000 5 times in a week, 5 times in a month, that's significant. Now you're talking about 15,000 shillings that went into your stomach. And if the other person is not aware of it, see, when you put that spend limit,
Right.
then you're able to do many purchases below that amount.
That's true.
So the idea is have an agreement
Okay.
and discuss openly and consistently review.
Okay.
There is a reason you have an accountant in your workplace, because they are constantly reviewing the finances of the business. By the way, your business can go under very quickly on this small per diems, transport, different things that are going on if you don't manage them. Same thing in a marriage relationship.
Yeah.
Those small numbers, they add up.
They add up.
They
I
add
hear
up.
you.
So the idea is this: have an open relationship where you're discussing these things and reviewing regularly with a plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
So instead of maybe that limit,
Yes.
should then you be allocated money to spend? I think what I'm driving at
Yes.
here is it might be frustrating
Yeah.
if every time maybe you walk past a shop and you see a nice pair of shoes,
Yeah.
man or woman, and you're like, you know what, I want to pick up those shoes for myself.
Yes.
But you don't want to always call. So is there a way to curb that so that
Yes.
you're still aligned in your goals?
Yes.
But you're still able to live and to enjoy life
Yes.
without having to call. So what do you do in that case?
It is called a spending plan, aka budget.
Oh, yes, we learned about that.
Yes.
And I was actually, Rena, is it Rena? I think it's Rena Hicks who was
Yeah.
saying how, I was telling her budget isn't really a fun word. It
Yes.
just sounds like, meh. But
Yeah.
she was like, spending
It's a spending
It's a
plan.
spending
Yes.
plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay,
I
so-
mean, just have a plan.
Yeah.
And plan for the things that you like.
Okay.
The issue is that we often do a budget, and the budget only includes rent. It includes, all the bills that you have to pay. It never includes a holiday. It never includes fashion. It never includes technology. So
Yeah.
plan for it. If it
Yeah.
matters to you, make a plan.
Okay.
And so that if you know in this month we had budgeted and you have 10,000 that you can spend on clothing that you're going to do, then you don't have to make a call. It's within the budget. You'll come back and review later and see how it worked.
Okay. So,
And even and what it is that you have made the agreement already.
Yeah.
You said this is how we're going to spend. You don't now have to make a phone call every single time. However, if a good deal comes up, because it comes up once in a while,
I'm
make
a
the
sucker for savings.
then
No,
make
it's
the
for,
call.
for sales, rather, for sales.
So make the call and have an honest discussion again and say, this sale, it really matters to me. And you'll make the if you love each other, you'll make the adjustments for
Right,
each other
and it'll
and do it
work.
honestly.
Okay,
Yeah.
so like you were saying earlier, two people, you will rarely find two people who have the exact same views on money. In fact, you won't, because you have come back, you have different backgrounds, upbringings, experiences.
Yes.
So a lot of times you'll actually find that
Yeah.
one person is more likely the spender and the other one is more likely the saver.
Yes.
Should you then have one person managing the finances, the one who's maybe the saver in this case?
When you say managing, that's an interesting word that you're using
Okay,
there.
okay.
Managing means it's almost like they've taken full control. I'm not
Right,
sure.
yeah, so to some extent that they have the reins.
I
when
think
it
they
comes
they can guide that discussion and guide
Okay.
the things that you're going to do, but leaving it to one person, you're not leveraging on two minds. Two minds are great so that you can get that. In fact, one of the things I remember most about marriage counseling, my sister-in-law took us through a session. She's a psychologist.
Okay.
And she mentioned, because we're pretty similar with my wife in personality.
Okay.
And so she was wondering, it's not always the best to be even that similar, because then no one is going to check the other person.
Right. So there's
she's-
good and also
Correct.
differences.
In
I
a
hear
difference in
you.
opinion will mean that you'll check somebody else's perspective, you'll check their thinking, which is extremely useful.
Important.
Yes.
Okay, we have to take a quick break, but when we come back, I'm going to ask Waithaka about those relatives and friends and even your children who ask for money, especially those kids who are just constantly trying to get your money. But anyway, I'm not going to get into that right now. We have to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll dive back into it with Waithaka. welcome back. We have been talking about money and relationships. And at first we went into dating and relationships and, new couples. Then we went into marriage. And now we want to hear about friends and family and children and the other members around you, and how they impact your relationship with money or your relationship with them. And in studio we have Waithaka from Centonomy. You were actually telling me about an open day that's coming up, right?
Yes.
Right? This Saturday?
Yeah, so this Saturday at the All Saints Cathedral from
Yeah.
10 a.m. It's free. Do come for our open day. We're discussing money goals.
Right.
And that you're bringing up family. I'll be specifically talking about money and family goals.
Look.
So here's the thing.
Yeah.
If you have family, they will have a plan for your money. You'd better have a plan for your own cash.
Oh.
Everybody else is planning for your cash, including us marketers, because we're really good at this. We're trying to say, look, you have a certain level of income, you're at a certain level, this is what you can be able to spend. I want a cut of that.
Yeah.
All the different marketing companies do that. Everybody is doing that, including your family and your children.
Oh my
They
goodness.
have a plan for your cash. If you've ever gone shopping, you know that the children and you go together, they see
it's a
things
mess.
and they want stuff.
Yeah.
So why we find ourselves in trouble is because we don't have a plan for our own cash. And so everyone will come and ask. I always use this example in the classes that we run at Centonomy. I always tell people, listen, if you have a rich uncle, aunt, a relative that
Okay.
you know who's wealthy,
Yeah.
they are rarely the ones who will just take
Hand
out
out
1,000 bob and
money.
give it to you.
Yeah.
Have you ever, probably you've noticed that. I don't remember, I've noticed that around.
Oh my
They're
goodness,
rarely the
yeah.
ones who actually just hand out money. And it's weird because, somebody will come and ask, you have an extra 500 or 1,000 bob, when they have 100 million in their
Yeah.
account, but they won't give. And then 2 weeks later, you'll see them building a church somewhere and they'll give 10 million shillings, just like that.
Right.
Why is it? Because they have a plan for their money. And
And
part
if-
of that
yeah.
plan did not include you.
Yeah.
So please, those relatives who keep asking for cash, you are not in the plan and therefore
Yeah.
you're not going to receive it.
Yeah.
What you need to begin to do is understand everybody else will plan for your cash if you don't have one.
Right.
And they have a good plan for it.
So you have to take the
You
reins on
must
your
have to
own
take
money.
the reins,
Now, I
yes.
want to find out, how early should one start having the conversation about money with their children?
Day one.
Yeah.
Yes. Those of you who've been to hospital, have a child, it is expensive. Please show them.
Yeah.
Show them how expensive it is. And the discussion is not, we like to have, like a formal sit down. So now we're going to do this, this, and this with your child. That's not how children learn. They learn by mimicking what you're doing. So
Okay.
show them the right habits. So when I said from day one, I mean create an environment in which they understand this is how money works.
Yes.
How do they understand it? By you showing. So when you're going shopping, holding that baby,
Yeah.
show them the process of shopping. Have a shopping list and go and pick only the items that are on that list.
Right.
If you go with shopping with children and they see you doing it, they see you going, you didn't have a plan for what you're going to buy, and so they go into I want this, I want this, I want this, and they pick it off the shelf and they put it into the bag. Just the
Right.
same way that you do it. Try this next time.
Okay.
Before you leave the house with the kids, even if they're 2 years old, 3 years old, what would you like? Baby, what would you like? And they'll say, I want a lollipop. Good, put the lollipop on the list. When you go into the supermarket, they only will be looking for what is on the list. The
Waithaka, that's
lollipop.
genius.
Yes.
So that you've handled that even before
Correct.
you've left the house.
Because in the supermarket, all the wonderful marketers in this world have done beautiful displays directed at your children. They're at their level.
Yeah.
But you see, if you've gone in with a plan of what are we looking for today?
Okay.
Lollipop. What are we looking for? Lollipop.
Yeah.
When they get into the supermarket, they're like a target looking for where that lollipop
Yeah.
is. And they might be they won't be distracted by all the other
Yeah.
noise that's out there. Second thing is that they're watching you. So if you have that strategy, then they'll pick up on you, what you do, and they'll follow you. Children
Right.
do what you do, not what you say.
Right. So are there
Yes.
conversations that you should have with them or
Yeah.
shouldn't? And especially when they're a little bit older. Because I know in some families, they tend to think that maybe it's best to protect them from, knowing how bad or how good things are. So are there conversations that you should have or shouldn't have with them, especially now that they're getting older?
Like all relationships, children are looking for security.
Okay.
And if you can show that, yes, maybe things are a bit tough this month, but we're okay. That's what they need to know. They need to know that we're okay.
Okay.
Don't paint a bleak picture of
We're
death
done.
and
We're
gloom.
doomed. It's over.
But sometimes it's really useful that they know that there's a bit of pressure on at the moment. And that's a good thing, because no one's life is going to be a smooth ride all the way.
True.
And so if they see how you handle that pressure and how you handle it, it may be a very useful learning tool. But always remember, what they're looking for is a sense of security.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can't buy that, but we can maybe save up and do it maybe in 2 months.
Yeah.
So it's always not never, this is the end, things are
It's
dire.
done.
Not now, maybe in the future.
I
Yeah.
like that. And I actually think my relationship with money changed the more my parents became open
Yeah.
with me and my brother too.
Yeah.
And it's because they didn't paint this rosy picture. When things were really bad, which they did get at some point, they were open about it.
Yeah.
And it changed completely and forever the way I look at money. Now, what about pocket money? How important is it? Or is it just a fluffy thing that,
It's a
people
learning
do?
experience.
Right.
That's what it is. The idea of pocket money is that you want them to learn the practices that you're doing.
Yeah.
So that one of the things that we found is very interesting. Many parents give children just enough for what they need. They never give any discretion to the children over time. Maybe as 5-year-olds, 10-year-olds, where they don't even know what they want.
Yeah.
It may be useful at that point to kind of manage it, but even give them a sense of discretion so that you're guiding them. If you give exactly, look, you're a high school student, here's exactly 2,125 shillings because you know you've budgeted for everything, then how are they going to learn to budget for themselves?
Right.
You need to give them a little bit of discretion so that they're able to think, okay, I have this amount, what can I do with this? What decisions am I going to make, and what's the effect of them over time? So you want to give children a sense of discretion, and as they grow older, increase that amount, but having modeled it for them.
Right.
Don't just throw them into the deep end and say, here's 50,000 shillings budget for the rest of your year.
Can you imagine that?
It happens.
Well then,
We
wow.
train
Okay.
teenagers at St. Autonomy over the holidays. We train teenagers.
That's great that you start with
And
them
we
as
found, by
young
the
as
way, we found
teens.
some teenagers being given pocket money, about 30,000 shillings a month. It's like a salary. But it's because their parents can
Are
afford
they
it.
working?
They're not working. Context is everything.
Okay.
There's nothing wrong
Yeah.
with giving 30,000 if you understand how to manage it.
Okay.
In fact, it's a really good tool, because sometimes if you're a multi-billionaire and your children know it, and then you're being
Yeah.
given 150 bob,
There's a
you're
disconnect.
cheating me somewhere
Okay.
here. But if you're being given the tools, you see 30,000 sounds like a lot of money,
Yeah.
but it's the same as giving your child 2,000 bob and you've not taught them what to do with it.
Perspective.
So the idea is this: give them some discretion so that they're able to see, I can do a few different things. How do I manage it? And sometimes you want to see the creativity behind it and then review. So this month we had 2,000. What did
Where
we
did
do?
it go?
What did
What
you
did you
spend
do?
on? So what are the things you want for next month?
I like that
So
there's
what you do-
teens coming there.
Yes,
but
yes.
now I want to go back into the scenarios
That's
that
okay, go ahead,
I've been
go ahead.
painting for you. So the first one is
Yeah.
you have a family member who's been out of work for a year now and doesn't seem to be proactive in finding work, but instead keeps asking you to lend him or her money, which you know very well that they won't give it back. So should you loan money? What are the rules when it comes to loaning money to friends and family members?
I can give you my personal perspective. I can give you what we think. As I said, everyone else will have a plan for your money, plan for your own. So one of the things we did with my wife is that we decide, especially around friends and family, don't lend. This was our perspective. If you can afford to, please give.
Okay.
So that there's no pressure on having to be a debt collector at some point.
Yeah.
But sometimes I do understand that the amounts may be really high and it needs to come back. You can make that decision on by yourselves. But understand what is more important. Is it the relationship or the money? And if you can afford it, this was our personal perspective, which was give rather than lend. Because lending means now I have to come back to you next month and ask where's the cash.
And it strains the relationship.
Yeah. However, again, principle is this. Everyone else will have a plan for your money. You'd better have a plan for yours. And so even in the budgeting process, the spending plan, plan for giving.
Okay.
Yeah, plan, because there will be a baby shower this month. There will be a wedding committee next month. There will be a funeral, God forbid, next month. But no, I don't even mean God forbid. Funerals happen.
They do happen.
There'll be a funeral, there'll be sickness. So why not plan? We give anyway. So put it in your budget and say we have an item here for giving. If it's not spent, roll it over to the next month.
Okay.
And if you've overspent, then you know, okay, maybe I can't do it this month. Can we talk next month? Yeah. Talk like that.
So what about those instances where it's a huge amount? And maybe this friend isn't, this friend I've described here just sounds like an opportunist, okay? Which you shouldn't have those friends. But maybe it's your really good friend, someone you trust, and they're asking you for a good amount of money now, right? Maybe to start their business or to help their business out. Should you consider drawing up a contract in that instance where you're lending them?
Yes.
Okay. So now you are calling lawyers.
You're getting
or what
into
do you
business.
do? Yeah.
If you're getting into business and there's going to be a long term for return, yes.
Yeah.
I told you, any relationship, the principle is this: where there is no clarity, there will be conflict. Okay. And if you don't know what's the repayment plan, how do you expect to get the return? Are you expecting a return, or are you just expecting that the amount will be paid back? Are you expecting interest? All these things, if you don't write them down, if you don't have an agreement, it will just cause problems along the way.
Okay. So scenario 2. Okay. You have a friend whom you fell into the habit of paying for at the movies, at lunches, and basically everything because you just enjoy their company. But with time, the balance now shifts from offering to assuming that you are going to pay for everything. So this is to the extent that she calls you out, or he calls you out and tells you, let's go to this event, but you know that you're going to pay. So how do you draw those lines with friends and make sure that they don't take advantage? And those awkward moments too, when the bill comes and it's like, oof, how are we gonna do it? I think it was even more difficult for the old. Anyway, let me not share my stories, but go on. So how do you...
No, I'm really now interested in your story. I'm really interested.
I was just going to say, I think I've heard like my parents say, I just like how you guys know, like, my generation, how you guys know that when the bill comes, you just all split it equally. But she says that it's a little bit more difficult because everyone's like, okay, so let me take the bill and let me cover for everyone. And then you'll often find that one person does that. But I'm like, if I go for lunch with my girlfriends, we're all going to split the bill. But
well, I don't know. I guess define the relationship as it is. How did you end up in that situation where you're the one who's paying often? Were they in a tough position? Because we've had that in our lives where a friend has been in a really tough position in their lives. And so what you're saying is, look, our friendship matters more. Let's still go out, let's still enjoy. And when you're back on your feet, then expect that to happen. And have an open discussion about that. Hey, I know now you've got a job, so
this one's on you.
So you just do like that. I mean, and if you're in a good relationship, it should be able to survive that and to work through those things. But if not, then you need to just have an open discussion again and say, hey, look, I know, but this is becoming tough. Because the problem is, it builds resentment. There's an underlying resentment that begins to build, and it stops being a good relationship. And you start hating the person for this one thing, and yet your relationship is made of so many other things. Where there is no clarity, there will be conflict.
Clarity.
So clarify
you said it
your
before,
relationship.
you keep saying it. I hear you, Waithaka. I think this has been incredible. You've really helped unpack the different things that often lead to conflict, whether it's in new couples, in marriages, in friendships. and even how to make sure that we're bringing up children so that they have a profound respect for money and don't just see it as, I'll figure it out when I'm older. So
Because they
thank you.
cost so much. Children.
They do cost. Do you know what I started doing
cost so
actually?
much.
Do you know what I started doing?
Yeah.
I started keeping a list of everything my daughter breaks. She's a year now.
Yeah.
Because the first salary, you bet your, rear end that I'm going to collect the check because she's expensive. No, I'm kidding. I'm not going to keep a list, but they are expensive, and I think it's important that we raise them to know how to manage money. So thank you so much, Waithaka Gatumia. You have been incredible at trying to unpack this whole money thing. And now I just want to take a moment to speak to you guys about our WCW. She is a phenomenal woman. She's Kenyan-born Dr. Frida Mokaya, who's become the first Black female to graduate with a Doctor of Philosophy in Nuclear Physics from the University of Connecticut in the US. She was the only Black female student of physics at Connecticut University, but this didn't bother her much as she kept focus on the ultimate prize. And so a hearty congratulations to you, Dr. Frida. We honor you and we celebrate you, and we can't wait to see what next you've got for us or planned. And also for you ladies out there and the men who we'll celebrate on Mondays, but we want to see what you're doing. So if you have any women that you'd like us to honor, please reach out to us on social media. That's Living With Us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And we'll see you back here tomorrow, 8 a.m. sharp, because we're talking about postpartum depression. You know that we've been running a series on mental health, and our guest for tomorrow's show is going to be actually, I'm not gonna tell you who she is, but here's a hint. She's Mama Tito. You may have heard of her, and she shares her journey with us. So we'll see you guys, right? Tomorrow, 8 a.m. Bye.